So things have just changed, and it's just blossomed, and it's become completely different in a completely different way. Sometimes it's good because it shows a level of awareness of our people. But on the other hand, sometimes it can be a bit testing, and you just need to strike that balance in order to find a measure of where you place the youth in life.
That is very interesting. I also like how you started, no? Though the children that are born here in the West, they are growing up here, they have a sort of African heritage in there. That is very interesting. Um, anyway, I'm coming back to the youth just now, but I like to sort of stop a bit on the story that you were saying before. When you were growing up in the UK, how this situation used to be, and now this is just one generation apart. In fact, you are a connection between your parents' generation and your children's generation. It's like the other day I was interviewing, I think the the president, I think is called, of the National Orientation Agency, Edo State. So we're talking about Nigeria, talking about the system, the political system, the society of Nigeria, what has changed. He was telling me how he benefited from the system. Of course, you know that most of the current crop of leaders in Nigeria benefited from almost like a kind of free education. And they are still here. They have not died, all of them. But they are not giving free education to the Nigerian people. I mean, what they have benefited from, they are not giving it out. Therefore, they are the ones that are ending the system. So if the system today is corrupt, it is corrupt in their hands. So where I'm actually trying to go here is that if we say the society has changed, and we have seen how it was then and how it is now, and we are sort of the connected dot, what does this say about us?
What it says about us is an absolute indictment of what we have contributed to the society. And I have to say that, hand on heart, and with no doubt in conviction, we as the cord in between the older generation and the newer generation and the current crop, we haven't done well. That's a case in point. That's a fact. And if people are wondering why I say it because, by the time I got to Nigeria, we had we were just getting into, or thereabouts, the first of the Second Republic, it was called, of politicians. And I remember vividly that I came in at a time when people were looking at politicians and saying, wow, oh, wow. So they were doing this, they were doing that. Oh, you know what? By the time I got to GCSE, or whatever age in Nigeria, everybody was thinking, we need to sweep out all these old people. And like, if there was a way that we can kill every 45-year-old upwards so that we can take over and correct the system, because we felt that the system was wrong. But you tell you what, the system was wrong when the pound was still 2 naira to 1 pound. All right? So we were there, trying to say that it can't have gone wrong if the right people were in the right places. These are our fathers and mothers. They didn't go to the right schools that taught them about integrity, credibility, and fair practice in governance. When we get there, with the education that they have spent their money teaching us and giving us, we can make things work, because they haven't made it work. Now, what then happens is that gradually we started growing up. Gradually, some of my contemporaries started getting into positions of authority, and they didn't correct the ills that their father figures did. They actually perfected and made their own more sophisticated. And therefore, we now have, internet-related fraud. And they can now siphon money without anybody breaking sweat. I suppose in those days, some of the older ones will physically carry bags of money. They don't do that anymore. They can do it by transfer, and it's okay. It's fine. So it means that we are not part. We number one, we took something from the older generation, and rather than make it right, correct it and make it better, we got worse, we got better at doing it because we're looking at the likes of those ones who were arrested and jailed for 82 years and 95 years in those days in the early 1980s, mid 1980s. Governor of this state was jailed because he siphoned 2 million naira and all that. And we're looking at them, all of my contemporaries are looking at them and thinking, he was just not clever. We'd do it better. We'll steal 15 million and nobody's going to bat an eyelid. And they were doing it. And I know them because some of them were people with whom I grew. And you look at them and you look at what they've made of their lives at the moment, and you're thinking, what have they passed on down to the youth, to that next generation that you say we are in the middle of? Because we passed on a sophisticated, and now when you now look at the younger ones at the age of 22, 23, 24, 25, and where they're aiming for, you think that, well, heaven help me, I don't know what's going to become of the future of life, because they're even aiming higher, because they feel that they can even do it even better than their father. So we haven't done a good service to legacy in terms of credibility, in terms of honesty, in terms of reputation.
Thank you for that. I like your honesty that we must hold ourselves accountable for the role that we play in our society and therefore the society that is going to come because we just cannot hide. My mother used to say, of course, she would say in my language, basically, she's saying that the good people are giving birth to the bad people. That is why we are still managing. By the time the bad people are giving birth to the bad people, then this world is completely spoiled.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Now, let's talk about the youth a little bit because now we move to football. How are we supposed to make correction? Because now we have the youth. We sort of seem to be like, not all the time we really are sent, but we have an obligation to sort of pass on a legacy to this younger generation because they are going to be the future leader. There is nothing we can do about that. They are going to be there, whether we like it or not. So for us playing our role to straighten up the line for them a little bit is the minimum. What are we, this generation, supposed to do to correct an error?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've said it. I think in terms of what you've said has answered the question. It is leading by example. We need to lead by example. If we don't have a decent story to tell to our youth about what we are doing, how we're doing it, how we achieved it, then we have no legacy to pass on to them. Is the absolute truth. So, excuse me. So the important thing is you always remember that we are not living this life for ourselves alone. We're living to pass a legacy to our children. And that's one thing that a lot of my contemporaries lose sight of. The truth of the matter is that you have to, everything that you do, you have to think about the fact that the youth are watching you, and what would you do if they were doing the same thing? And I'm not absolving myself of it. Otherwise, I'll probably be in the Vatican as a pope. So I'm not absolving myself of it. But the truth is, there are some who do a lot worse than others. If you do stuff that cannot correct or that is immoral, downright immoral in every way, shade, and form, how can you pass that legacy on to the youth and say, this is, how can you give it as an example of what you do? They look at you